Hi, hola, soy yo Vicky otra vez. In today's video, I'm doing something a little bit different. I thought I would explain to you about meals in Spanish because it's very different in Spanish. So the not obviously the names are different of meals because it's a different language, but more than that, it's different because of the times of the day that people eat their meals. So it's very different in Spanish culture, not only in Spain but in South America. Okay, so we're going to, first of all, we're going to look at the verbs, the verbs, the names. So to have breakfast, in Spanish, the verb is desayunar, and that is a regular AR verb. So when you conjugate it, I have breakfast, or I had breakfast, or we used to have breakfast, you conjugate it just as you would a regular AR verb. And the noun is breakfast. Sorry, that's the English noun. The noun, breakfast, is el desayuno. So it's masculine. Now, it's important to remember in Spanish that if you wanted to say, I have my breakfast every day at 8, well, you can use the verb, yeah? And just say, desayuno cada día a las 8, yeah? But if you want to say it more in an English way and say, I have my breakfast, you will not use the verb to have. You use tomar, to take, and you'll say, tomo el desayuno cada día a las 8, ¿vale? So that's important to remember. We never use have for food or drink in Spanish. We use tomar, to take, or we can use the verb itself, to have breakfast. Now, Spanish people, in general, please remember, I'm talking in general. There'll always be somebody who doesn't do this. I'm not trying to generalize too much, but it is a fact. It is, we all have each culture has their tendencies, let me say, and there are always exceptions, but in general, I think in Spain, breakfast is a nothing meal. In other words, they don't really have breakfast as we understand breakfast. So to get up in the morning and have cereal or toast as soon as you get up, I think that'd be quite unusual in Spain. I think a Spanish person more likely maybe to have a magdalena, or some fruit, I suppose, if it depending on how healthy you're feeling on the day, or a colacao. This is the hot chocolate. They quite often have that for breakfast, but not really eating much in the morning. So not first thing before they go to work. So it's not a big meal. They don't have like the English, because I know we don't have much for breakfast normally if we're on a working day. And although we have like the famous English breakfast, that's only really for holidays and weekends. But I think we do tend to have something nearly always. It'd be unusual, I think, not to have any breakfast. Whereas I think for a Spanish person, they'd be quite happy with a colacao and a magdalena, possibly. Okay, because then at 11 o'clock, this is more important for them. The almuerzo, or the elevenses. So the verb is almorzar, which is a diphthong changing to UE, and that is to have elevenses. And the noun is el almuerzo. Okay, so if you want to say I have elevenses every day at 11, well, you would really, wouldn't you? But you would say almuerzo cada día a las 11, or tomo el almuerzo a las 11. So what you'll find is meal times in Spain, I should say, are pretty much uniform, unless work stops them from doing it for some reason because they have to work, or everybody you find that these are the busy times in restaurants. At 11 o'clock, everyone goes for a coffee, and almuerzo would be maybe a tapa, piece of tortilla, maybe a pan tostado con tomate or something like that. So yeah, it wouldn't be a massive amount, but a fair amount. I mean, you know, it's because this is more or less their breakfast or brunch, really, if you like, because they probably won't have eaten anything first thing. Okay, so that's almuerzo. And if you have children in school, in Spain, you always have to send them with a little almuerzo, maybe a sandwich or something, so they've got a yogurt, something, so that they've got something to eat before 11 o'clock with all the other children. Then we come to the main meal of the day in Spain. So in Spain, la comida or lunch, this is, how can I put it, it's sort of sacrosanct, it is essential, everybody has it, even you see the workmen out and about, they will always stop and they've got their big picnic things with their, with their comida in it, or they'll go to a restaurant to have a menu del dia. This is where menu del dia comes from, because it's very important. The midday meal in Spain, it's the most important meal, and I believe the same in other Spanish-speaking countries. So this will be a big meal, you know, like a menu del dia: starter, main course, pudding, maybe some wine, beer. You know, it's a big thing. It's not just a quick sandwich like it is in the UK, or you know, and in other countries. It's not. This is the main. This is where all the family get together. You try and stop a Spanish person having their comida at 2 o'clock, it's virtually impossible. You know, it's like, you know, incredulity. I wish I'd start trying to say that. Incredulity. No, I'm not saying it right. But they will be incredulous at any suggestion that they might have to miss la comida or have it later or have it earlier. It is that important in Spain, certainly. And it's lovely. It's a lovely occasion. You know, I don't know how they go to work afterwards, because normally if I go out for a menu del dia after I've had the wine and the 3 courses and the coffee or whatever, I just want to go to bed. I certainly don't want to go back to work. But you know, that's the difference in cultures. You know, you get used to doing things a certain way, don't you? So yeah, this will be at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock, unless there's, you know, a specific reason why it can't be at 2 o'clock, that's the time it will be. And all the family try and get together for that, you know, if possible. Obviously, it's not always possible, but I think that's the intention. You know, it's quite a family time. And again, if you have children in school, you see that even the children at school, they're offered, you know, a good 3-course meal. I mean, it's brilliant, really, because you know that they've had a good meal. And then, of course, the meals later, they're the smaller meals. So they'd be quite surprised if you suggested giving your child a sandwich at lunchtime. It's almost like child abuse, you know. So yeah, there's no packed lunches. There's no option to take packed lunches in Spanish schools. It is proper meal, 3 courses, followed by a couple of an hour of playing and stuff like that. So yeah, lunchtime, or the midday, if you like. It's this. I will do a video about the parts of the day, because they're quite different in Spain as well. It's a very important time of day for families too, and for getting together. So, okay, so that's it. So that's to have lunch is comer. So it's the same verb as to eat. So that, I think that says something. So comer can be to have lunch or just to eat, and the noun is lunch or la comida, which again can just mean a meal. So, as I say, we're not really used to having a big meal at lunchtime, and I personally think it does sort of throw you out for the rest of the day, but that's probably, I just don't know how to do it, because I've not been I'm not in that mindset to do it. Anyway, their next meal, if they have it, will be the la merienda, which is like tea, what we would call tea in Britain. So tea time. Now, because they've had a large meal at lunchtime, this would be at about 6 o'clock, probably 6 o'clock, maybe 7 o'clock, and this would literally just be a yogurt, or probably a lot of people don't bother with this meal, but I noticed they try and give children a little yogurt or something. You know, the meals of the day are very enshrined in Spain, you know, and very adhered to. So round about 6 o'clock, they'd be running round after their little one, trying to give them a yogurt or make them eat a little cake or something like that, just to keep them going. So that's the only equivalent we have, really. It's like tea time, which of course in Britain, tea, having your tea, is more in the north, and we tend to have about 6 o'clock. What you having for your tea? It's similar to that, but it wouldn't be a meal. It would just be a snack. Okay? Again, about 6 o'clock. So that's to keep them going until dinner time, because dinner time is very late in Spain. And the bigger the city is, like here in San Miguel, it would probably be at 10 o'clock. That would be, you know, most people would have their dinner at 10. If you're in Madrid or somewhere like that, it'll be later, maybe 11 o'clock at night. You know, so you can see why they might need a merienda to keep them going, because that's quite a long time in between meals. But unless it's a special occasion, the dinner or la cena, and cenar is the verb to have dinner, a regular AR verb. Unless it was a special occasion, it would only be a small meal, because don't forget they've had their big meal at lunchtime, what we call lunchtime. At 2 o'clock, they'll have had a 3-course meal probably, or certainly a substantial amount with bread and salad, and as well as the actual meal itself. So in the evening, normally it'd be something very light. But if it's a special occasion like Christmas or somebody's birthday, or I don't know, something, you know, they're celebrating a special occasion, then yes, it will be a full-blown meal, you know, a big meal. And certainly at Christmas they eat right into the night, you know. I mean, it just never stops. So I thought that's probably a bit like us, but we do it in the daytime, you know, we never stop eating. So I suppose it's the same, it's just they do it at night and we do it in the day. So that's the verb to have dinner, cenar, and that's the noun, la cena. Again, if you want to say it more in an English way, you would use tomar. Tomo la cena. I take dinner, if you like, a las 9. And believe me, I know from experience, if you say that you have your dinner at 8, which I do, it's real sort of surprise, you know. Oh my gosh, that's early to have dinner. The times of meals are so enshrined in Spain. It's really quite unusual, because they all go out to eat at the same time. You know, they all eat at the same time. So it's quite interesting. So as I was saying on my other video, for Spanish people explaining the meal times in English, that's why it's a good time to go to the supermarket at 2 o'clock, or anywhere, the beach, anywhere that's normally quite crowded. If you go at 2 o'clock, you'll find you've got it nearly all to yourself, because everybody's having their dinner, their lunch, what they would call lunch. And yeah, and again, then at 10 o'clock at night, I mean, nothing's open by then anyway, but that's why you find as you're just leaving the restaurants, you might see Spanish people are just coming into the restaurants, which is quite interesting, I think. And yes, and if you go to a big city like Madrid or anywhere like that, and you try and go out and have dinner at 8 o'clock at night, You will be dining on your own in the restaurant because there'll be nobody else in there except maybe other British people or other nationalities, for those of us that have dinner much earlier. So that's it. So I hope that helps. I think these things are important because I certainly, when I first came to Spain, had problems getting used to this because if you don't fancy sort of a British meal, and bearing in mind that when I first came here, there weren't so many British restaurants here. If you don't fancy just sort of pie and chips, and you quite like to eat something Spanish, but if you're going out at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock to try and find something to eat, you won't find it. So you've got to go for your lunch. Probably between 1:30, the kitchen's open about 1:30, possibly 1 o'clock, depending on the restaurant. Close at 4, I would imagine, and then open again after 7 for it. So, although the bar part of the restaurant might be open, you probably find that the kitchens aren't open until much later. So it's worth bearing in mind, 'cause otherwise you end up like I have done on many occasions before the penny dropped years ago, driving around looking for somewhere to try, and I'm thinking, well, why is the kitchen closed at this time? So getting used to the siesta time, it's quite difficult, I think, if you're not from that culture. I mean, it's different now. A lot of places stay open all day. Obviously, we've got the Centro Comerciales in my area. I'm talking about, because when I first came here over 20 years ago, it was a very traditional. Um, there was hardly anyone living here really, so it was much different. It has caught up with the times. I mean, things like gyms. I remember being really surprised that the gym, it didn't open till 10, and then it would close for 2 hours at lunchtime. So at Spanish lunchtime, and at the end of the day, these are the times that people want to go to the gym when they're not working. So to not open it till 10, that's when everybody starts work, so nobody can go. And then to close it at 2 because they want to go and have their lunch, but that's when people have. So anyway, I think times have moved on, obviously, now at gyms, but they're probably, gyms are normally open all day, I think, or certainly in our area, but possibly not in more Spanish areas. I don't know. So it's interesting. It's all interesting. I think if you live in a little pueblo somewhere, you'll find that these times, if you like, or this timetable of food, etc., and it is still absolutely enshrined and not been varied whatsoever. So there was some talk, just I'm waffling on again as usual, but there was some talk a couple of years ago about, sort of cancelling the siesta time or bringing us in line with the rest of Europe. And there was such an outcry, so I think it's very difficult to change traditions, even though we've got aircon now. You can see where these things came from. There's obviously the time between 2 and 5 is the hottest time. And that'd be the time then where they go quiet and rest because it's too hot to be working. But of course, in these days that we've got aircon, etc., it seems a bit silly doing that. But at the end of the day, these are traditions that are solidly enshrined, and maybe it's a good thing. So maybe it is a good thing that people take this time to rest. I don't know. I mean, what do you think about it? Do you think it'd be good? It's frustrating. It's annoying sometimes. When you think, oh, I'll just go there, or you go shopping somewhere. Like now, we've got the shopping centres there open all day. But Torrevieja, which is a town near where I am, lovely town, lovely shops. But you feel like you've got to get there because nothing opens till 10. It closes at 2, so you've got 4 hours to get around everything. And then you've got to wait until it all reopens at 5. So I personally, although I think I see why they respect the siesta, I do think they lose money from it. But I don't think there's a different I'm not saying money is not important, that's not the right thing to say, but Spain, I think, is run on different, so it's not all about money, it's about quality of life as well, and that, of course, is important. Okay, so that's me, I've finished. If you found the video useful, please give me a thumbs up, because then I know that these sort of videos not only explain about grammar, etc., but explain about some of the traditions of Spain, or the way that people live their lives, etc., and the vocabulary included in that, like of the meal times, etc. I'll know then that you like it, and I'll do more videos like that. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe, and then you'll get notification of any future videos. So yeah, I'm going to try and do a little bit more variation. I've been doing my break the language barrier books, and that's good. I think people who've got the books have enjoyed going through the videos with them. But yeah, I'm going to do some more slightly different ones like this, with little other things that are interesting if you live in Spain or you're interested in Spanish language or culture. So, te veo en el próximo video. Gracias por mirar. Hasta luego.